The greenhouse effect has enabled life to survive on Earth, and it's done that by maintaining that average temperature of 15 degrees. The greenhouse gases in the atmosphere protect the Earth from harmful waves, which would make the Earth too hot, and also provide the warming effect, which prevents the Earth from getting too cold. So in the words of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, it makes sure that the temperature is just right to sustain life. Now, I'm hoping that you can remember this from a previous topic. What I'd like you to do is tell me the names and proportions of the gases in our atmosphere. The main gas in the atmosphere is nitrogen, which is approximately 80% of our atmosphere. More specifically, it's 78% of the atmosphere. The next gas, which makes up the next biggest proportion of the atmosphere, is oxygen, which is around 20% or 21% of our atmosphere. And 0.9% of our atmosphere is argon. Now, the remaining gases are found in very small proportions, and they include carbon dioxide, which is around 0.04% of the atmosphere, and water vapour, which varies depending on the humidity and the temperature. Now, there are some other gases that are in incredibly small proportions, but the greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, water vapour, and a gas called methane. And those gases in our atmosphere cause the greenhouse effect. And the greenhouse effect is good because it ensured that the temperature on our planet was hospitable. Now, frequently you find that these two terms, the greenhouse effect and global warming, are used interchangeably. But it's really important that at this point I point out the difference between these two terms. The greenhouse effect has occurred for a very long time. Since those gases came into our atmosphere, the greenhouse effect has occurred, and it is a good thing. It ensures that the Earth maintains a comfortable average temperature of 15 degrees C. And because the temperature on Earth is around an average of 15 degrees C, it's the perfect temperature for life. Global warming has started to occur due to the increased levels of greenhouse gases. So when people talk about global warming, they're talking about a process that started to occur when those greenhouse gases started to increase in their proportions. And it's sometimes called an enhanced greenhouse effect. Now, global warming is responsible for climate change. And due to that process occurring, it is increasing our global temperature, and then that has an effect on our environment. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to have a go at these three questions. The first one is to name two greenhouse gases. Then I'd like you to describe the trend shown in the data in the graph to the left. And then give a consequence of that change in the concentration of carbon dioxide. So what will that concentration of carbon dioxide change affect on our planet? So two greenhouse gases, you could have had any of carbon dioxide, methane and water vapour. So just two of those would have been sufficient. The trend shown in the data is that generally over the years carbon dioxide concentration had increased. And the consequence of that would be because carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas and that level has increased, then global warming will occur. So now we've looked at why global warming has occurred and the differences between global warming and the greenhouse effect, it's time for us to look at a few consequences of global warming. And the first one we are going to look at is the melting ice and rising seas. Now, the combination of these changes is causing sea levels to rise. That results in flooding and erosion of coastal and low-lying areas. And the reason why that's occurring is because as the temperature increases on average on Earth, the ice layers, so our ice caps and our glaciers, have started to melt as it is above the melting point of water. That water then goes into our rivers and lakes and oceans and causes the sea levels and the water levels in those areas to rise. We also have seen an increase in extreme weather and shifting rainfall. Now, heavy rain and other extreme weather events are becoming more frequent, and that has led to things such as floods and decreasing water quality. And this is a knock-on effect of the change to the temperature of the Earth affecting our weather systems. There are also some other consequences that are being seen. So in southern and central Europe, we're seeing more frequent heat waves, forest fires and droughts. The Mediterranean area is becoming drier, which makes it very vulnerable to drought and wildfires. And in northern Europe, it's getting significantly wetter and winter floods have become slightly more common and could become more common in future. So climate change is happening so fast that many plants and animal species are struggling to cope with it. So from some of the examples you can see on the screen at the moment, you'll notice that a lot of these organisms live in extreme temperatures. So they either live in places that are very hot, like the elephant, or in places that are cold. Now, because the temperature is increasing, that means our hotter regions are becoming even more warm, which is then causing some issues with water levels in those areas. Whereas where the polar bear and the penguin live on ice, because of the increase in temperatures, those habitats are melting, and that means that those two organisms no longer have a place in which to live that they are well adapted to. In terms of the turtles, some of those are very sensitive to increasing temperatures in the water, and that is causing some of those organisms to become extinct. Now, going to do a little quiz to just review everything we've gone through so far. So, true or false? Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. And the answer is true. True or false? The greenhouse effect is a bad thing. And the answer is false. Greenhouse effect is a good thing. It made our planet hospitable. True or false? Global warming is because of rising levels of greenhouse gases. And the answer is true. True or false? Global warming causes rising sea levels. And the answer is true. True or false? Global warming causes the loss of habitats. And the answer is true. True or false? There is no evidence for global warming. And the answer is false. There's lots of evidence for global warming. As long as records have begun, we can see that steady increase of temperature and the steady increase of carbon dioxide concentration. There are seasonal fluctuations because of summer and winter, but we'll look at the general trends when we're looking at this sort of data. So now I'm going to ask you to have a go at a longer answer question for this lesson. But first we are going to bug the question. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to box the command word. And there's actually two in this. I've got describe, which means I'm going to say what something's like in this case because I've not got something to describe in terms of a graph. And explain, which means I've got to give a reason why something is happening. And in an explain question, it's really important we use the connective because. And we're going to describe and explain the environmental effects of global warming. Now, to do that, I am going to give you a few things to include. Okay, so first, why is global warming occurring? What is causing that change? And then I'd like you to give two effects of global warming and link those effects to their impact on the environment. And I'm going to give you some time to complete your answer. So first of all, global warming is caused by increasing levels of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide. Now, the next thing I asked you to include was some of the effects on our environment. So the first one I've put is the increasing temperatures causes ice caps to melt and sea levels to rise. Now, the linked statement to that is that it causes a loss of habitats for animals in polar regions and low-level land. So another effect is the increased temperatures can be linked to more wildfires occurring. And linking to that, which will damage large areas of woodlands. So as you can see, when you are describing and explaining, you give your reasons and then you link them to the explanation. Okay, so that's our lesson on global warming. So that's everything from me in this lesson, and I will see you soon.